All right, second part, what is this chapter? Chapter 8. Simon Magus. The next morning, Niceta said to Peter he desired to learn how Simon, who was the enemy of God, was able to do such wonderful things. For indeed, says Niceta, he told no lie in his declaration of what he had done. Niceta had been one of Simon's disciples. Peter undertakes to explain how Simon is able to do great marvels. Simon, he said, was a magician. Niceta asked, in what respect do they sin who believe Simon, since they see him do so great marvels? Or is it not marvelous to fly through the air, to be so mixed with fire as to become one body with it, to make statues walk, etc.? Yea, says Niceta, he has also been seen to make bread of stones. But if he sins who believes those who do signs, how shall it appear that he also does not sin, who has believed our Lord, but his signs and works of power? For his signs and works of power. Peter replies that if a man believes him who comes first, showing signs, he must of necessity, for the same reason, believe him who comes second. When he believes the second one, he will learn from him that he ought not to believe the first, who comes of evil. After the discussion, Simon sets out for Rome, and Peter resolves to follow him. Following Simon Magus to Rome, we learn that he there lost his life. In the Encyclopedia Americana, it is stated that he perished in an aeronautic expedition, giving as authority Eusebius and Suetonius. Suetonius, in relating the cruel sports and games which Nero instituted for his own diversion, merely says Icarus fell splashed with blood, from which the reader may infer only that Nero had compelled someone to attempt the flight of Icarus. The story is to be traced to the Acts of Peter and Paul. From that book, we take the following. When, consequently, the people were making a seditious murmuring, Simon, moved with zeal, roused himself and began to say many evil things about Peter, saying that he was a wizard and a cheat. And they believed Simon, wondering at his miracles, for he made a brazen serpent move itself, and stone statues to laugh and move themselves, and himself to run, and suddenly to be raised into the air. As a set off to this, Peter healed the sick by a word, by praying, made the blind to see, and put demons to flight by a command. Sometimes he even raised the dead. Those who adhered to Simon strongly affirmed Peter to be a magician. The matter coming to the ears of Nero, he ordered Simon the magician to be brought before him. And he, coming in, stood before him and began suddenly to assume different forms, so that on a sudden he became a child, and after a little old man, and at other times a young man, for he changed himself both in face and stature into different forms, and was in a frenzy, having the devil as his servant. And Nero, beholding this, supposed him to be truly the Son of God. But the Apostle Peter showed him to be both a liar and a wizard. After considerable conversation, Nero says, Art thou not afraid, Peter of Simon, who confirms his godhead by his deeds? Peter replies that Simon does not know the hidden thoughts of men. Nero said, Do you mean me to believe that Simon does not know these things, who both raised a dead man and presented himself the third day after he had been beheaded, and who has done whatever he has said he would do? Peter said, But he did not do it before me. Nero said, But he did all these things before me. For assuredly he ordered angels to come to him, and they came. Peter still demanded that Simon should tell what was in his thoughts. Simon made the same challenge to Peter. Peter then demanded of Simon to know what he, Peter, had just done in secret. For having taken a barley loaf, he had broken it and hid it in his sleeves. And Simon, enraged that he was not able to tell the secret of the apostle, cried out, saying, Let great dogs come forth and eat him up before Caesar. And suddenly there appeared great dogs, which rushed at Peter. But he, stretching forth his hands to pray, showed to the dogs the loaf which he had blessed, and the dogs, seeing it, no longer appeared. Simon said, Dost thou believe, O God Emperor, that I, who was dead and rose again, am a magician? The writer of the Acts of Peter and Paul here explains how Nero had deceived had been deceived by Simon, stating that as Simon was to be beheaded, he had requested that it be done in a dark place. And when the executioner came and was about to strike the blow, Simon turned himself into a ram, so that he remained until the ram's head was taken off, when he became himself again. On the third day, he appeared as if he had risen from the dead. Then followed a conversation in which Nero, Simon, Peter, and Paul also, who was present, participated. Nero, not being able to satisfy himself, says, "The three of you show that your reasoning is uncertain, and thus in all things you have made me doubt, so that I find I can give credit to none of you." Simon now proposes to Nero that if he will build a high wooden tower, he will go to the top and thence fly through the air, attended by his angels, and thus give open evidence of his divinity. Nero agrees to the proposal, and the next day builds the tower. Simon goes upon it and commences flying in the air, attended by his angels. Peter, looking steadfastly at him, prays to the Lord to stop him. His prayer is answered, and Simon falls headlong in a place called Sacravia, or Holy Way, and perishes. This, no doubt, was the aeronautic expedition alluded to by the encyclopedic compiler, and to which he supposed Suetonius to refer when Icarus fell splashed with blood. Simon Magus also had his gospel. It was called the Great Announcement, and consisted of the revelations which, as he claimed, had been communicated to him from the supreme God. It was sometimes called the Gospel of Simonides, also the Gospel of the Simonians. That's it. Where's the thingamajigger? There it is.